Welcome to Trigger Talk, your place for everything first-person shooters like Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so much more. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Ready to hop in. We're going all through Season 7's new map, Haven, in Battlefield 2042, and we've got some thoughts. We're also going to talk a little bit about the changes to recoil, because that's been a hot topic in the community. So let's jump right in. Okay. Before we jump into the map, I do want to bring up the little bit of controversy that's happened before we even recorded, and it's around Marcus Leto. The tweet he says this: "Not been saying much here since I don't have anything positive to say about EA. My recent departure and how so many, including my team, are suffering due to the industry sweeping layoffs." So I want to talk about that. That's been a pretty consistent topic that we've been covering on the podcast, as it's just a big part of the game industry right now. But I do think it's interesting that we have such a revealing but little detailed tweet on how it is basically what we assumed it was going to be when we heard that announcement, that it probably wasn't as amiable as it probably could have been.
Yeah, they were some subtly feisty words from Marcus, and it was kind of like good to see in a way that like he's not just going to play it off like, oh, this is unfortunate. I understand, and hoping everything can go well from here on out or whatever. He's just straight up said, I have nothing positive to say about them. So pretty you don't see that often. I don't feel as though you see that in this situation.
Yeah, usually something happens and then there's nothing about it ever.
So it's very interesting to see that, and I wonder if there'll ever be, I don't imagine anytime soon we'll hear more about it, but I wonder if he'll ever come out and talk about that and what the exact issues will be. Because obviously, like, I think with layoffs, I think anyone's going to be annoyed at the company that lays them off, of course, but usually you do actually see a lot of people saying, like, as frustrating as this is, I understand it because this was kind of coming. We've seen that with a lot of the layoffs, that it's very unfortunate, but it wasn't really a surprise in a lot of cases. This one seemed as though he's like, no, I'm mad that like they've just thrown us out the door, essentially. And it makes it seem like there's more to it than just, it was just a layoff. Like it seems like there was
he actually left.
Yeah, I think that must have been what happened, is that he kind of knew this was coming, and obviously the whole studio being shut down and all that, he must have known like something about this, and he's essentially cracked it and said, all right, well, I'm done. Because I'm sure they would have offered someone in his position a different position.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, so yeah, it's very interesting, and it's kind of good. I'm glad that it's kind of sticking up for his team. He's like, well, I could have gotten a job in another position and stayed at EA, but like that's kind of like the captain going down with his ship type thing, where it's like, nah, if they're all going, I'm going too. You're not getting me if you don't get them. So yeah, obviously it's unfortunate, but I'm like glad to see that he's handled it that way rather than just kind of bending to EA, I guess.
Yeah, it's good to see. I just wanted to bring that up because it came up between the times that we recorded, and I thought it was interesting. Now, the other controversy, as we enter the controversy corner, I do want to talk about the visual recoil stuff. So this was alongside like the announcement of Season 7. They had one of the developers actually take to a video and announce these like groundbreaking changes to recoil, and we're in the first person shooter community. We're making a podcast about it. I wonder why so many of these companies and studios and development teams keep on making this mistake of like changing the core piece of first person shooters and expecting there to be no backlash. It's a tale as old as time.
I really,
For as long as there has
especially
been.
with this one, don't understand it. Like, if they came with the next Battlefield, right, and because obviously every Battlefield, even though they all play somewhat similar, the gunplay and stuff is different. So if they came to the next Battlefield game and it had it had this level of visual recoil and stuff. As much as I don't love visual recoil, I'm okay with that because it's a new game.
Yes.
So like that's fair enough. But yeah,
what is visual recoil for people that just may not be aware of it and they just boot up Battlefield and the guns feel differently? Because I knew it was announced, but until I played the game, I didn't connect that was something that had changed. And I was like, why are my guns feeling so weird in this?
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to explain without like almost doing like a video demonstration of it, I guess. But
yeah.
Essentially there is two types of recoil in that there's the actual recoil of the gun in terms of like when you're
bullets.
Yeah, when you're holding down the trigger on an assault rifle, obviously it recoils up into the air in different directions depending on the gun. And the general term of recoil means that it's kind of like the difference in where the bullets are going. Whereas if you've got it on single fire mode and you're just like tapping the trigger and then letting it reset, then there is no recoil because obviously it's shooting in this exact spot every time. That's the like normal recoil of the gun. But then there's visual recoil, which is essentially not to do with where the bullets are actually going. It's to do with just it's almost like the camera angle that we're seeing through. So obviously it's a first person game.
Yeah.
It's almost
the
like
animation of what we see.
So it's not actually, they haven't changed the actual recoil patterns of the gun. They still shoot technically as accurate as they did. But this still does make them less accurate because now, it's really hard to explain, but now it doesn't, where you're looking isn't necessarily where the bullet is going to go, which is the issue. And that's why it feels kind of bad. Now, I haven't had a chance to play the update because I've been so busy with the other channels, but I've seen so much gameplay. All the people I follow on Twitter who play Battlefield and stuff, I've seen so many people sharing clips and stuff. And it does look a bit messy. There's plenty of games that have visual recoil. And I mean, even before this, the game still had visual recoil. It's just that they've kind of increased it.
Basically every game has visual recoil because it's not... It doesn't make sense for a game's animation to match the actual layout because, like, in game development, in the engine itself, your hands and you don't see your body necessarily all the time as accurately as it would be if that was you in real life. So as I'm standing here right now, I see my hands and my peripheral vision. I can see my feet as I'm standing here. That's not how it works in a game, and it doesn't work that same way with animations around the recoil and how the bullets actually interact with the game.
Yeah. Consider it like if a game had zero visual recoil, but the guns obviously still have recoil. If there was no visual recoil, the gun, when you're aimed down sights, the gun wouldn't look like it's shaking at all. It's just the background that would be moving. So the gun would just stay in the exact same spot. Whereas we know that in a shooter, when you do aim down sights and you shoot the gun, the background is in like the environment around you is moving, but also the gun has a little bit of shake from side to side and it's got like muzzle flash and stuff like that. So yeah, even prior to this, the game did have that visual recoil, but it was just very minimal. Whereas now it's not minimal at all from what I've seen. And to do it this late in the game is what's confused me. We are into its third year. It's like 2.5 years since the game came out. Why are you changing such a drastic thing that late into the game when it wasn't an issue. No one said like, I mean, to be fair, the recoil was very easy to manage. So I guess technically it's a slight issue because every gun was kind of like a laser beam, but no one was really complaining about it. And now they've gone and changed essentially the fundamentals of the game, which is like gunplay is the number one element of a shooter, and they've changed the fundamentals of the gunplay. So that's kind of my issue with it. Like I said, if they just implemented this in the next game from the very beginning, from launch day, I might not like it as much as how it was previously, but that's fine. That's how they want their game to feel. Doing it this far in though is like, what are you doing? That's just like removing vehicles in Battlefield in general this late into the game. It's like, what the hell? Like, that's a core part of the game. You and I wouldn't be complaining about that, to be honest. But
yeah,
it's
something they should do.
Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? It would be like, what, I don't really want them that much, but like, what are you doing? That is a key fundamental element of Battlefield, and you're just gonna 2.5 years in and be like, actually, you know what? We're just gonna remove vehicles, because that's genuinely how big of a thing this is. And yeah, it's left a lot of people. I think a lot of people are very annoyed about it, and like rightly so, because I don't know, it just doesn't really make sense why they've done it this late.
They're so annoyed at it that they are going to do a quick patch, I think April 2nd. Yeah, DICE aims to address the weapon visual recoil issues with next hotfix, set to go live April 2nd, or within the next game update in case they need further testing. And they say it's a high priority. So they're like, guys, we have this great idea. We're going to completely change, after about 3 years, how visual recoil is in this game. Oh, crap. What did we do? It's like you addressed how visual recoil changes the game. That's what you did. Did you not realize that your fans and also the people playing Battlefield 2042 right now are like the hardcorest of hardcore fans?
That's the part.
They're the really ones that are going to notice every single point,
yeah,
like decimal point difference in damage each update.
Yeah, that's the part that is just the most confusing, because like I said, if they did this change like 3 months into the game, that's fair enough, because we're still in that phase of like fixing it, right? We're still in the phase of like, okay, this isn't what we wanted to launch the game as, so this is a correction for that, right? And that would be fine. Again, it's just a subjective thing whether you like or dislike visual recoil. I played plenty of shooters, for example, Warzone, and like just Modern Warfare, the Modern Warfare games in general, they've got a lot of visual recoil. So it's like, it is just an opinion at the end of the day, but doing it this late is what's...
When you're used to a certain type.
Wrong. Yeah. That's the thing. We've gotten so used to it for so long, and now it's like, whether it is better or worse doesn't matter. It's like, why have you changed it this far in? Just save that for the next game, or... Yeah, I don't know. Very confusing.
Well, like you were saying earlier, the entire game and community has had this same kind of style shooter. Whether or not you believe it should be one way or the other, if you switch in the middle of it, that's when it becomes noticeable. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem here. It's not like if it launched with that kind of visual recoil, we wouldn't know better. Like, obviously it'd feel differently, but we couldn't necessarily tie it down to that exact piece because so many other things had changed.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I do think it's interesting to see them make such a public choice and then immediately regret it. I did see some people theorize on Reddit that this is them playing and testing and using 2042 as like a playground for the next game. I hope that's true. I don't think it actually is, because like we've talked about before, DICE has a very old-fashioned way of making games where they make the game, the entire studio works on that game, and then as soon as they launch it, they only have a subset of the company focus on live service and fixing the game. It's not the same people that develop the game that continue the updates. It's a completely different team. There is some crossover, but it's typically much smaller and typically different people or a dedicated group of people.
Yeah, I agree with that it's like, I hope that's what they're doing. I hope they were testing this to see our reaction for, whether they put it in the next game or not. And like, wishful thinking would have me think that, but I don't know if that's the case at all. And like you said, it's not the best place to test it in the fact that this is the most hardcore Battlefield fan base you can really ever get, because everyone who was just a casual fan or whatever has moved on. Hell, I'm a massive hardcore Battlefield fan. I'm not really playing this game anymore. So the people playing are diehards. And we are, of course, going to notice it. And if they did this at the start of the next game, we might be like, yeah, this is fine. Like, it doesn't matter. But because they've done it here, we're instantly all like, no, this is bad. Go back.
Yep.
So then if they are learning from that, they're just going to not put it in the next game when it may have been a good thing. Do you know what I mean? It may have actually been fine, but because the time they've done it, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of one of those, just the very confusing dice moments of like, who, like, what, when they're thinking about all the stuff to add in this game and what still needs to be fixed and what they want to change and stuff, how did this even come up? Like, who was like, you know what, after 2.5 years, let's pretty much start the gunplay from scratch. Like, I don't know. And then, obviously, if someone just has that idea, fair enough. They're going to share every idea they have. The fact that it, like, everyone was like, yeah, that's a good, yeah, let's do that. Like, what? What do you, why is this what we're focusing on? There's so much more stuff to be focusing on. Like, content. I know it's different teams, but, like, get some of those dudes who are working on this stuff to make content for the game, because the whole issue with the 2 map thing, that still annoys me. I'm still... You're going to have to hold me back from ranting about that. But, like,
if you want to hear our thoughts on that, go 2 episodes back and we talked about it at length.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just one of them confusing things. And look, the fact that they're like going to fix it, if that happens and it goes back to what it was, or even just a middle ground or whatever, and people come out of it happy, then yeah, fair enough. But it's just like that all could have been avoided. Now they're spending time fixing something that they didn't need to fix, if that makes sense. They just never did this. They wouldn't be thinking, oh damn, now in the next update we've got to fix this. That wouldn't even be something I have to worry about. So
it's like the analogy of like when you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. It's like that. These developers are like, yeah, we've kind of got it pretty solid from a gameplay aspect. What do we do now? It's like, how about, my job is around recoil, right? Let's do this thing. Let's see how it goes.
And the thing for me was just how drastically different it was. Like, if they just slightly increased it, I think that's fine. Like, because that is the issue with having not much visual recoil, is that it does make guns feel very easy to use. And I've had a lot of, because I play on like with a high field of view and stuff. When I was making Battlefield content, I get a lot of people saying like, how are you aiming like that? Like, your shots aren't missing. It's not because I'm good. It's because the freaking visual recoil is minimal. And so you're just laser beaming people. And so adding a little bit is fine. But the fact that they went from pretty much none to freaking... I've seen clips of people like, you can't even... Like, people loading or like unloading a whole clip and not hitting one shot. Like, that is a drastic difference. This is coming from content creators who are good at the game. It's not like this is some NPC. This isn't like it's their first match. Like, these are good shooter players and they are missing every bullet. That's the other part of it, is that it doesn't feel like you should be missing every bullet. To you, the aim is on point. To the game, it's not. So you're missing every single bullet. That's the issue. And that's the key issue with the visual recoil in any game, is that it's not real. It doesn't feel accurate. And so I think a lot of people, and I'm like this as well, I don't like playing games where when I press a button or do an action, it doesn't do exactly what I tell it to.
Yep.
If it, like, I understand realism and stuff. Yeah, I understand realism and all that. But like, if you press jump and it doesn't immediately jump, that feels bad. I don't care if it's unrealistic. That feels bad to not have the action happen when you press the button. And it's like that with the visual recoil. To me, I feel like I'm aiming and hitting all my shots, but what I'm doing on the controller isn't translating to the game. And therefore I'm missing a bunch of shots. I'm dying. I'm getting frustrated because it's like nothing that you're doing is working, and it's not actually really your fault. So I think that's a lot of people's issue with the visual recoil. And yeah, it's fine in small doses, but when it's like drastic, I don't think it's ever a good thing. Because like I said, I think the key to a good game, especially a multiplayer shooter, is that what you do on the controller should translate as perfectly as possible to the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're already dealing with an amount of lag, no matter the connection from your keyboard and mouse to your PC and your PC to your display to your refresh rate to your the FPS that you're getting on your monitor, whether you have a wireless control. There's already a built-in amount of latency. And then adding an extra layer of that just makes it feel weird. And like I said earlier, I knew about this beforehand. It's like, okay, that's good. We'll see. That doesn't sound good. And then in the time between I saw that video to when the actual update came out, I had forgotten about it. And I was like, why do I mean, I already suck. But I was sucking even harder.
Yeah, and that's a good example that you used. It's like, this is almost, the equivalent of like lagging, but your internet's fine. And you'd be wondering, like, why does it feel laggy? Like, what's wrong with what I'm doing? If your internet's fine and you're lagging, that's very frustrating. You know that that's something that's out of your control and it's causing you to like lose gunfights and stuff. This is kind of the same thing. It's nothing you're even doing wrong. And with how much they added, you can't even really like learn to adapt to it and just understand it, because it just feels completely random. So
Yeah,
it's not even like a thing of people saying, oh, it's just you just need to get better and get used to it. No, like, I don't care how much you get used to it. It's not that accurate, because they put so much visual recoil that you could be the best. You could get the best shooter player in the world to play this game, and they're going to miss a lot of shots, and that's a bad thing. If you're getting the best person on a keyboard and mouse, for example, in the entire world, and they can't do what they need to do, then that's not an issue with them. That's an issue with your game.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's completely on the ball right there. But I think it's time. You've seen a lot of gameplay. I've played around like 4 or 5 rounds, I think, of the new map. We've talked at length about the upcoming quote-unquote map and completely glossed over the new map just because it was... That's how we saw it. It's like, what the absolute crap is this garbage? But how you feel about Haven?
Like I said, I haven't played, so it's hard to fully judge it. But from what I've seen of it, it looks really cool. Now, it's very easy to say, because anything new, and especially like a more urban type of map like that, I think it really would just look good regardless, even if it was bad. So it's hard to fully judge, but from what I've seen of it, it definitely looks decent to me. I was hoping I would have played it by now, but obviously just been flat out with the other content. So
yeah,
hopefully I can, like, maybe even depending on if there's not news next week, hopefully we can like even just do a quick little rehash and I'll try and play between now and then. But yeah, it looks cool to me so far. What are your thoughts on it?
I really enjoy it. So played a few games, and ultimately the map is really good. It still struggles from a lot of like the things that just makes Battlefield 2042 Battlefield 2042. The buildings are still further apart than I think they should be to accommodate more vehicle play, even though this map is specifically designed for like infantry play. Like, even seeing the helicopters and the tanks on the map just looks ridiculous compared to everything. It's like, it doesn't necessarily work out. The same concerns that I had before I was able to play are there with which is like Battlefield 2042. Its style is large expanses around, and then there's like one interest point. And if getting from your spawn to the actual combat feels very painful, everything's really open. You do have to go in through the buildings to like stay alive, really. Sniping is a bad problem with this map. The verticality is nice if you are utilizing it to your advantage, but having it utilized against you is painful, because there's literally like you're getting shot from any direction. That's like the biggest struggle. I think that's exemplified by the length or the amount of distance between buildings that is part of this map. If they just really just shrunk the distance between buildings, I think this would be a lot better, because instead of having these big gaps between everything that snipers and other people can look down and have a straight shot no matter where you are in the map, I think that would be a lot more helpful if they shrunk that distance.
Interesting. It's weird that they like don't. It's like every map has to be fine for vehicles. Like, it's weird that they can't just give us at least one map where they're pretty much saying like, yeah, you probably don't want to use a tank on this map. Like, we'll put them in there, but it's going to be hard to do. And I don't know why they don't do that, because there's a lot of maps where it's very hard to be infantry and it's not hard to be vehicles.
Yeah.
Why can't we have it the other way around, where it's kind of like, well, if you want to play as a tank, go ahead, but this map is not really
just
designed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the specialist system. The specialist systems, there are specialists that are better for certain maps, or in theory there should be specialists that are better for certain maps. And there are other specialists that are better for other maps. Like, that should be the experience that is had when it comes to whether you want to. Each map should have its own style, and every map seems to make some compromises for vehicles that I think that this map would benefit from a lack of vehicles. And I've seen that from vehicle players too. There's like, it's not even that much fun because of how helicopters are just destroying everyone. I've seen a lot of complaints around helicopters in particular.
Yeah, it's also like similar to, like, there's maps where it's hard to snipe because it's close quarters, or
Exactly.
the opposite. There's maps where it's hard to use an SMG because it's such open ranges. Why can't they do that with vehicles, where it's just give us one, where it's like, it's very easy to blow, which would be, if the buildings were all way closer together, that would be a lot easier to blow tanks up and stuff, because you can just kind of hide in a building, wait till the tank drives past, blow it up.
It'd also make destruction a lot more impactful, because destruction is a big part of this map, and I feel like having things closer would make the destruction actually like have an impact, I feel.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you feel that way, because I didn't think that it would be like that from all the, what we'd seen leading up to it and stuff. And to be fair, I don't watch a lot of people who, do vehicle gameplay, so I just kind of assumed it would be.
Are there any
fine.
like vehicle YouTubers?
There's actually weirdly, a lot of them are Australian. There's Silky,
really?
And I think his name's Ash as well, who are like some of the best vehicle players in the whole world. And I don't know why it seems like they're all Australian. It's probably why I freaking hate vehicles so much, because probably those two dudes specifically just messing me up every time I play. But yeah, I don't think there's that many, but yeah, it's just interesting. I didn't expect that from this map, so it's kind of disappointing to hear that the map we thought probably would be fine for vehicles, or for infantry against vehicles, it turns out that that's not really the case. So, very interesting.
Yeah, that's my, like, it's sounding pretty negative, but I had a fun time once I was able to get the flow of things, and I had to play in the buildings, which is a little bit more difficult to do, and it takes a lot of like preparedness and also a lot of patience. Like, you need to be a lot more aware of your surroundings. And honestly, even if you are aware of your surroundings, it can be difficult to actually go across the map to traverse like the actual flow of content, because the gaps in between the buildings, like, someone could easily snipe you or just pick you off. Or like I was trying to protect a command point in the first match that I played, and I was sitting there. I was like, okay, there's got to be someone, right? I go out for 2 seconds and immediately get destroyed. I'm like, if I had waited a little bit longer, I probably would have been able to like take out that person. So that's kind of like the strategy that you have to do, is a little bit slower, and that's honestly like not what you would think with a semi-urban map like this. Like, you would figure that as an infantry, you'd be running around a lot more rather than playing like a little bit of a hide and seek match, just because of how easily accessible you are at any moment.
Yeah, it's a very opposite way to what I expected, because like if you said that on a map like this, from what I had seen of it, that snipers and vehicles would dominate, that's like the opposite of what I thought. It would be like an SMG and some explosives would be the best way to play it. But it kind of seems like that's not the case. So yeah, I don't know what their fixation on vehicles is, that like they just have to make it okay. It's like they don't want to offend a vehicle player. They want every single map to have vehicle options and stuff, which, like, I get it, but there's plenty of maps in plenty of games where, like, I really enjoyed sniping, but then that map I just knew, okay, like, I want to snipe, but I probably shouldn't because I'll get dominated, and that's fine because it makes you change.
Or I'm going to choose it, and I'm gonna choose it and know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I might snipe and get absolutely deleted. That's okay. Like, it doesn't. I don't know. They should just have maps where, like, vehicles are hard to use, and if you can still dominate people with a vehicle on that hard map, then that just is more proof that, like, oh, you're a really good player. You should, should be happy with that. But it's just, I don't know. They just seem to be so scared of doing that for some reason, which just doesn't make sense to me personally. I don't know why vehicles get the priority when 98% of people who play Battlefield are infantry. People, there's only, say, 2 tanks on the map at any given time, and the rest of people are infantry. And then most people, even if there was 100 tanks available, I wouldn't choose a tank. I would be playing as infantry. And I think most people are like that. I would still say like 80 to 90% of people just want to play infantry. So I don't know why the vehicles kind of like get the priority. It's just I don't know. It's a weird way that they do it.
Yeah, I don't quite understand it. But like I said this in the Discord, for 2042, I'd give this map like an 8 out of 10. For the Battlefield series as a whole, probably a 6.5.
Yeah.
If I'm on a 10 scale ranking, and like that's the ranking that you have to have in terms of like its placement with the other 2042 maps. It's heads and shoulders above the base maps. In terms of Battlefield as a franchise, even the best Battlefield 2042 map is still maybe only a 7 or an 8, maybe. Yeah. And it kind of sucks that that's the situation that we're in. I'm having some fun with it. I've seen a lot of discussions here recently around like the behind the scenes pieces of like Battlefield's development, which we'll probably talk about next week. We'll get some further like strategies for Battlefield 2042 Season 7 and the new map. But I also want to talk about this thing that's been going on with like Westy confirming that he was never reached out to, but apparently they paid content creators like Shroud.
Yeah.
I think he said that on a stream. So I want to get deeper into that, like not for this episode, but probably for next episode. But when you look at like the decisions that they make for this, when you go from like a premium pass where you get 4 maps like throughout that whole series of updates to now you only have 1, you're really losing a lot of that engagement that you could have had. So I think Haven's good. I don't know how popular it's going to be for how long, but for now I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I guess that's all we need for now. So I guess we take it as a positive, but it's now my issue with it is like now there's just kind of nothing again, because I don't think, like, is anyone that excited for the stadium map? I don't think anyone's like jumping out of their boots for it. I think people, when it comes, people will play it.
I'm so excited, Sammy. I am like so over the moon hyped that I get to play on this map that they took away from me again.
I know you so well that when you say that straight, like as soon as you said I'm excited, I knew where you were going. Goodness. Yeah, it's just I don't know. That's now my issue, is that it's just
nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hate that I'm saying this, and I know we would be complaining about it if they released it this way. I would rather have them release the stadium map first and then save the good map for later on in the season, I know we would all complain about it, but at least we'd have something to look forward to and get better for. I'm literally just going to hop into stadium and be like, yep, this is stadium. Okay, bye. And then probably not play it over like any more than that.
Yeah, that's a map for me. Well, like with Haven, even though I haven't had the time yet, that is one that I want it. Like I'm interested to play it. With the stadium, I will not be like downloading the update and playing that. I'd imagine I'll be too busy with other stuff, and I'm not going to be like, oh, like I really want to play.
My curiosity is going to get the better of me. Should I do this? No, but will I? Definitely yes.
Yeah, it's.
I'll jump on the grenade for you, Sam.
Yeah, you just tell me how it is, and I'll trust your judgment.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's a lot of potential here. Like we were talking about earlier, I hope that they look at this. I hope, please, for the love of all that is Battlefield, go back and look at the problems that this game had pre-development, pre-launch, launch, post-launch controversy. Have a postmortem. So like in events production, every time that you do an event, probably a week or two afterwards, you have like a postmortem and you go through and you see, okay, this was a success. This didn't work. This was almost a success. They need to do that for Battlefield as a franchise. They need to go back and look at what works, what doesn't work, and just take it, look at it with new eyes, and say, okay, here's where we went wrong. And here's what we need to do next. And if Battlefield 2042 is still going to be supported, look at how you can test things before the next game. I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I just am hoping for from this game now, which ironically we just kind of roasted them for the visual recoil thing. But like, I do want them to use this as a testing ground for the next one. That's really my only.
Don't test visual recoil. Test something that's actually going to be like impactful.
Yeah, because visual recoil is like, even if it's better for the game, no one's going to like that. And so when you do it this late into the game, it's like, of course, people are going to be mad about that. If it's other, I don't know. I feel like there's other mechanics that they could do that would be a lot more like welcomed. But yeah, I don't know. It's just. I'm kind of like, I just want, it sounds weird, I just want this game to like end so that we can start gearing up for the next one.
End my pain.
Yeah. Just because like, even though, let's just say the next game is coming out the end of next year, right? And we know that, even if they just said today, that's the launch date, right? It's hard to get excited for that when this is still the one that's getting focused on. Once we've moved past this one and we know that like all hands are on deck for the next one, then I will actually start being properly interested again. But yeah, how it is now, it's like, probably just sounds very negative, but every time they do one of these updates, it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm not overly interested. I was interested to see how this would go, but I know how I genuinely know how I'm going to feel about Season 7 before I even played it. I'm going to play Haven. I'll probably have a bit of fun. And then I'll be bored waiting for the next one again. It's like they're not offering that much value at this point. And it just makes me think like I wish that they would... Like I do appreciate them still focusing on this game. It's not like I'm being negative just saying like, oh, this all sucks, just stop doing it. The way they've turned this game around and everything... I genuinely respect them for that and go, like, you guys killed it with how poorly this game launched and to the state that you've got it to. Like, once again, well done for your posts.
You killed it. Now you're killing it.
Yeah. Like, so, I don't want it to sound too negative saying like, oh, this game sucks, just delete it. That's not what I mean. It's more just like we just need the next one to be good. And I feel like the more time they spend on this game, I don't know how it works internally at DICE and stuff, but it feels like that time should be spent on the next one. I don't know if that's how it works, but it just feels like they're taking away from that. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see. Like, has season 8 really been confirmed? They haven't said.
No.
Yeah,
they haven't said anything.
Yet,
we don't know if, when, or anything around a new season. We kind of have hints because they have, like, what was the EA store update or something like that, where they had like seasons 8, 9, and 10 that they had like spots for, but we don't have any confirmation on if there's going to be anything more than that.
Yeah, like, I feel like now would be a good time to end, especially like bringing back Stadium, even though we've got our issues with that. It'll be a good piece of content, and to bring that back and sort of end there, I think would be fine. I think just if they do a season 8, it's just going to be like, oh man, like that's another 3 to 4 months of like content that we don't need, because it's not like this game's killing it. They're not making heaps of money. The people who are, even the hardcore, like a lot of people I follow who are like hardcore fans of this game, they are still in the same boat where they're like, this game for now is fun, I'm enjoying it, but I'm looking forward to the next one. So I think even the hardcore fans of not just Battlefield, but 2042 specifically, I think even those players, obviously not everyone, but I think the majority of the people playing this game still really want the next one to succeed. And it's hard to get fully excited for that next one while we're still getting stuff of this. So
I'm so torn. I would love for Battlefield 2042 to like continue to be updated, but on the other hand, I want it to just end so we can have clarity on the future. I mean, if we had confirmation that yes, season 7 is just the beginning, we are committed for at least another year on Battlefield 2042, and this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have at least 3 more seasons, or not at least, we're going to have 3 more seasons, and we're going to offer these things as part of those seasons. Like, if we just knew and we had like an end date, I think it would be a lot better than this kind of like, yay, Battlefield 2042 is alive, and it's like, oh crap, here we go. What's going to happen next? We don't know. Are they working on the next game? We don't know. I would much rather, one way or the other, have confirmation on what direction they're going.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and that's actually where I almost disagree with what I just said about like wanting it to end. If they did that, I would be also fine with that. If they literally just said, all right, it's season 7, we're going to do 8, 9, and 10, that's confirmed, then that would at least have me somewhat interested, because I'd be like, all right, well, I can kind of just commit to this game a little bit for the next, 9 months or whatever. It's just like in limbo now. This content hasn't got me to even play the game yet. And it won't keep me hooked, because I don't know what's coming after that. So it's like, I will just play Haven, and I'll probably play like 1 session. If it's really fun, I might play another session. But I know that I'll just sort of die down after that again, because there's nothing confirmed on the horizon. And so, that is actually a good point, that, it's not just about ending it. It's also about like, just tell us anything, because it's the not knowing that for me kills me. Like, and I understand it's not that simple. I understand they can't just be like, here's the next year of development that we're doing. Things change very quickly, especially in these times. Like, people are getting freaking laid off all the time. They don't know if in 3 months more people from DICE have to get laid off, and then they can't do the content they've said. So like, I understand it, but that's where I'm kind of like, if you can't commit to it, don't do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you're not sure that it's viable, why are you even doing it? Commit to the next one, because the next one can be viable. If it launches well, the next Battlefield can be viable for freaking 3 or 4 years. This one just can't be. I just don't think this is viable for another, X amount of time. So that's kind of my complaint with it, though. But yeah, if they did come out and say like, we're committing to it, then that's also fine by me, as long as it's just some sort of communication, which unfortunately I don't think we'll ever get, really.
It's sad, but it's kind of like the standard thing. We'll see. I know EA wants more of like a focus on Battlefield as a franchise. They definitely want to like do more with that as a franchise. We'll see with what that looks like, but some clarity would be nice.
Yeah, that's just the main thing that to me tends to annoy me, is just not being communicated with. Like, it just kind of sucks the joy out of, doesn't matter what game it is, even if it's like, I don't know, like the biggest game, like when Warzone was out, or like if I played Fortnite and stuff, doesn't matter how good the game is, if they're not telling us what's happening, it's kind of hard to care, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just, I don't know if I'm just weird like that, but that's how I am with pretty much any game. If they're not open and transparent, it just kind of makes me enjoy the game less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see how it goes, but as usual, thank you for listening to this episode of Trigger Talk. We greatly appreciate all of your support, and stay tuned. We're going to have a deeper dive into some strategies that we're using. Sammy's gameplay thoughts once he's dug a little bit deeper into Haven as a map. Maybe he comes back and he's just like, actually, Sage is an idiot. I don't know what he's talking about. I have no problems with any of the snipers on this map, and Sage just needs to get good. Stay tuned for that. We're also going to be diving into some of the deeper details into possibly some behind-the-scenes drama, controversy, definitely misfires when it comes to the super team that they had actually giving feedback on Battlefield 2042 pre-launch and during development. We're going to talk about all of that next week. As always, check out Sammy Boy's YouTube channels. He's got one on Star Wars, FPS, and gaming as a whole, and he's been digging deep into Dragon's Dogma 2. And has been killing it with the content, really enjoying all of that. And if you're into any extra Star Wars stuff, we also have a Star Wars podcast called Star Wars Uplink. As always, we'll see you later, video gamers.